Hello, hello, happy Thursday. This week we're going to talk about turning pain into superpower. So, if you have been walking around with pain, emotional pain, if that's something that you've been carrying around and you're not sure how to deal with it, maybe you have been making decisions to avoid stepping into pain rather than turning towards pleasure and enjoyment, and you want to kind of change that dynamic, then we are going to be talking about this today. Going to be from the perspective of identity shifting and personal growth and development, as always. And I'm going to be walking through very quickly the framework that I have for identity shifting. I do have a full masterclass on that in case you want to see more. So let's start with talking about why is it so important to deal with pain. Most people deal with pain by avoiding it. They deal with pain by not dealing with it. They just ignore it. Or if they're carrying around something that's difficult, they're going to try to drown those emotions by trying to focus on positive things, trying to not feel it, trying to not think about it. And what happens is that you just squeeze down a lot of emotion into your body that turns into like a pressure cooker in your system, and you're walking around with this, and all of a sudden you're going to lash out, or you're going to have like what feels like an emotional explosion and you don't know where it comes from. Well, it comes from not handling the emotions that come. And today we're going to dive deeper into this. So I want to get started first by getting back into the identity shifting framework that I have. I have to remember to write in reverse now. I hope you can see it. I can't see it at all, can you? S R. So the first thing we want to do is we want to identify. Don't judge my handwriting, okay? I'm writing in reverse because my camera's mirrored. Needs to find a solution for this. Identify. First we identify. I'm going to dig into this. I'm just going to write out what do these mean so I don't have to worry about writing in reverse again. Source. Oh, that was supposed to be a C. I don't have my YB thingy here. So source and reframe. So I do, as I mentioned, have a full masterclass on this. No judgment on these handwritings, okay? It is not easy to write in reverse. I suggest that you try it out and see if you can do it live on camera. I guess this is not live. Anyways, first we identify. What does this mean when it comes to pain? We identify what is the pain that we're dealing with, first of all. What does it feel like? Where does it show up in our life? Where do we see that we are making decisions based on either from pain that we're already carrying around? This could be around how we talk to people because they triggered something, an old wound in us. It can be where do we make decisions to avoid pain instead of going towards pleasure. It can be in general just how we act and feel and think and believe in the things that we say and that we do. And then we take the perspective around pain. Second part is on the sourcing. Where did this come from? Where was this pain birthed in me? The thing is, we often carry around pain that is the result of something else. So the pain is the symptom. So this could be that you have some old ideas around yourself and your identity. It can be that you have stories that have been integrated so deeply in you that you don't even question them because that is just what your life looks like. That is just how you are. You've never tried being anything else. So you have these stories in your system, in your identity, that leads to pain. And then in the end, we reframe. We're gonna get deeper into this, right? But once you have identified it, once you have sourced it, and then you get to the reframing, it's about looking at the situation from a different lens. And this is such a powerful thing. And the reason I keep going back to these is because we need to understand this framework from all of the different angles. You might say, but Rebecca, I've seen this framework before. What does that mean? We're going to be talking about what that means in all of the details and how this translates into your life with specific scenarios. I'm just going to put this back for a second, even though you can't really fully see it there. Sorry, I'm going to get new pens soon so you can see it more easily. So I want to use some examples, especially around the narrative? What is the story that that you carry around? And this is a story that I often refer to, right? Because I was born in the late 80s and then I grew up in the 90s. And when we grew up in the 90s, a lot of you will know that there is a lot of body shaming, right? A lot of body shaming. And the stories that I heard around women and women's worth were all narrowed down to what they looked like. And if they didn't look like Kate Moss or any Victoria's Secrets models, then they were not good enough. And guess what? Most people don't look like Victoria's Secrets models, right? So a lot of us, especially, young women, teenagers, young girls, I remember my earliest memory of feeling ashamed of my body, I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, maybe even a little bit younger. So second grade, right? And I remember feeling very self-conscious about it and not feeling right about it. And as I grew up, that only became stronger and stronger and stronger because I had the story in my head that I was only valuable when I looked a specific way. And not looking that way cost a lot of emotional pain because it completely robbed me from what I believed was my value. And when this story is so deeply ingrained, when you've been it's like propaganda, right? All the news magazines, all the TV, all the narratives, all the stories, everyone is talking about weight loss and diet, and it was the biggest thing. So when you have someone come and say, "Oh, but your value is not in how you look," it sounds like a lie. Even if it's your mom. Like my mom would try, right? She would try to help me understand that there was value in me that wasn't about the way that I looked. And it caused a lot of internal pain not being able to be that desirable person that you would see in the magazines. I would feel extremely self-conscious about the clothes that I was wearing. Even leaving the house sometimes was really hard. And it just caused a lot of emotional pain that I didn't know how to deal with. Because how do you remove the pain of feeling completely worthless? And that then led into other things such as eating disorders, right? Because back then we didn't really have a lot of information. Today we have overflow of information. Back then we didn't have a lot of information. There was no social media for me to turn to. There were websites, there were magazines. So one thing that I knew is that if you eat less calories than you burn, you lose weight. So what did I do? I stopped eating. I would literally I would start by skipping meals. So some days I wouldn't have lunch or I wouldn't have breakfast or I wouldn't have dinner. And that later on translated into having days where I wouldn't eat anything because, oh, if I just don't eat, then I'm going to lose weight. And maybe one day I'm going to look like a Victoria's Secret model. Guess what? That doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. But now I'm then dealing with the emotional pain, plus the physical pain, plus the burnout, plus the complete lack of energy, plus everything else that just accumulated and created this deep emotional and physical pain in my body. I did not know how to deal with it, okay? One of the ways that and there's a small trigger warning here, one of the ways that I dealt with my emotional pain was by inflicting physical pain. So I would inflict physical pain on myself so that it could take away the emotional pain because the emotional pain became so difficult for me to deal with. I didn't know how to sit. I was in so much emotional pain that I couldn't, it felt impossible for me to stay in my own body. And the only thing that I could do to relieve it was by inflicting physical pain on myself. And it was almost like allowing some of the air come out of the pressure cooker. That's what it felt like. So those were the tools and that I had to deal with emotional pain. As I then grew older and as I kind of matured in general, I would start, excuse me, I would start questioning my belief in a different way. I would listen to other sources of people talking about women's value, right? For some reason, it only mattered when it came from men at that point. It didn't matter when it came from women because I was like, but you don't know what a woman's worth is, which is completely ridiculous when you think about it, right? But that's who I was. That's how I thought. So what I did is that I would look around. I would look around. I didn't live around, Victoria's Secret models. I would look around and I would look at who looked beautiful to me. And the more I looked, the more it kind of expanded my idea of what was beautiful. And it would give me different ideas around what was valuable. It took me a very long time. Okay, it took me a very long time to be able to apply any of this to myself. I surrounded myself with people who saw a different value in me, and it still took like, when I tell you I couldn't even greet people with my ex-boyfriend's friends. When I had to meet new friends, I was so terrified of what they would think of me that I just wouldn't say hi. I felt so unvaluable that I couldn't say hi to them. I was like, they're going to be offended if I say hi. It's not the thought that came into my head, but the feeling was like, I can't say hi to these people because, I'm not worthy. And that lasted up into my late 20s. Okay, so I carried a lot of this around for a very long time, but I managed to reduce some of the emotional pain by dealing with my reframe around it, by adding new stories to myself and rewiring myself into seeing that there was a value in me that wasn't just exclusive to how I looked. It still took me a really long time to fully identify that what I was going through was not normal. It wasn't how it was supposed to be. And if you just assume that everything you live and everything you are, that is how you're supposed to be, it becomes incredibly hard to change it because you don't even question it. So it took a lot of time for me to identify, where does this show up? And I've been finding ways that these things show up much later after I thought I had already dealt with it. There are still tiny little crumbs. There are still tiny little stories. There's still so much going on where I am identifying, oh, here's a thought pattern, here's a belief, here's a reaction, here's a trigger, here's an emotional response that I don't necessarily like. Here I feel unsafe, here I feel uncomfortable. Where does this come from? And that's why this framework is so important, because you have to identify it and then you source it, you figure out, what is this? Where does this come from? And how do I then reframe it? Because once you fully understand it, it becomes so much easier for you to reframe it into a way that this is how I actually want to look at things. This is the power from which I want to see these things. But when you're in a place where you're just constantly battling the emotional pain that you're going through, because you've never learned how to deal with it, it becomes incredibly hard to do work on yourself. It's like if you're always in survival mode, you're just managing to get to the next day. All right. It's like if you're just constantly trying to make do, it's really, really hard to put in the effort to create long-term change in yourself. And then this becomes an effort that most people won't be able to do if that's how they feel. The thing is, when you just start noticing the little things, and when you just start questioning the little things, and when you just start challenging the little things, then slowly you start expanding yourself. You start understanding yourself from a different perspective, and you get to source it. And when you see the reason so in my example, the reason I'm in this much pain is because I have a false story in my mind around what my value is supposed to be versus what I feel my value really is. So there's a big disconnect there. And I realized that this idea of my own value and feeling completely unvaluable and unlovable and unworthy of basic things like saying hi to people and being respected, that created a huge emotional pain in me. So when you grow up with pain, and you can have pain in all different types of life, right? It can be that you grow up with another type of trauma. Maybe you grow up with like external things that happen to you or around you that has created a lot of internal pain as you grow up. And you don't learn how to deal with it. That makes you very often extremely scared of more pain to come. So one way that I would deal with pain as I was growing up is that I would do everything to avoid it. I would avoid difficult conversations like the plague because it was painful, right? I would avoid things that I felt were hard. I would avoid things that were uncomfortable. I would avoid things that are new. I would avoid things that I felt uncertain around, where I couldn't predict what's going to happen and who's going to be there and what is it going to look like. Because I needed so much, and this is not a conscious thought I had, but it was a pattern that I had. Everything I did was to avoid pain. It's very, very common for us. It's not that we consciously think, oh, there might be pain here, so I'm not going to do it. That is what the subconscious mind says. The conscious mind makes up all of the excuses for why you shouldn't do this thing. It doesn't tell you that you're trying to avoid pain. It's telling you that you're making a great decision by not doing this thing. So it's about identifying what is it really that's going on. It's about sourcing it back to what actually is this? What is actually going on right now? Where did this come from? What is it that I'm really doing? What is it my subconscious mind is trying to do here? What are the thoughts and the stories that my conscious mind is telling myself to make sure that I don't do this thing? But then I look at the thing and I look at it and I think, there could be so much enjoyment here. There could be so much fulfillment here. There could be amazing things going on here. But for some reason, I'm terrified of doing it, and I'm not sure why I'm so terrified of doing it. And when we don't know why we're terrified of doing it, we're just going to listen to the conscious mind making up all these excuses for the subconscious mind, and we're just going to say, oh, but that's definitely a bad idea. Because all of the stories I've had throughout my life and that are in my head right now are telling me it's a bad idea, so I'm not going to do it, instead of doing the inner work to actually make yourself the favor of doing that thing. So how do we deal with pain? Now, the reason that this is such a current topic for me is that a couple of weeks, no more, a month and a half, maybe even ago, I had a really, really bad knee injury. I broke up a dog fight and my knee got in the way. So the dog wasn't trying to harm me, but I was in the way and there was a lot of panic going on. And before you know it, I had a dog bite on my knee. And it kind of hit some soft bone or something. I don't know what happened, but it started swelling up really crazy. And it was bleeding constantly throughout the night. I was in a lot of physical pain. A lot of physical pain. I don't remember being in physical pain like this before. When I tried to go to bed and to sleep, I couldn't lie still because the swelling inside the knee just hurt so bad. I also couldn't move because the movement hurt so bad. So I kept constantly trying to navigate between every few seconds moving and lying still, and both of them were just extremely painful. And what I did throughout this experience was to investigate what is going on in my system, like what am I feeling and how am I dealing with this situation. The thing about physical pain is you can't just turn it off unless you go to a hospital and you get some really strong painkillers, right? The pain is there, you're going to have to accept it. You trying to resist it or control it or turn it off somehow is not going to work. So what are you going to do? And I had hours of not being able to sleep where I was just lying there in pain, where I was like, okay, all I can do is accept this pain. All I can do is know that this pain will eventually reside. This pain will eventually stop being so present as it is right now. And I'm just gonna have to sit through it. I'm just gonna have to accept it and deal with it the only way that you can deal with it, which is just staying aware of the pain and trying to let it go and just doing some deep breathing and just sitting with it and paying attention to it. And what it did is that it taught me so much about my capacity to handle pain. Because once you let go of the resistance of it and you're just there with it and you're just experiencing it, you can say, okay, what is actually going on right now? And you sit with it and you accept it until it starts residing. It's the only choice you have is to accept it. And it taught me so much about pain that when some weeks later I got some news that were really, really, really painful to me, and I went through a lot of emotional pain, I went back to the night that I had with my extremely injured, painful knee, And I reminded myself that whatever I'm going through is temporary and I can handle it. I am capable of handling this pain because no pain is too big for me unless it's so big that it literally kills me. And this is not it. It is extremely painful, but I'm going to stay alive with this and I'm going to overcome it and I'm going to be stronger from it. So the thing is also, once you get to a place where you realize I can handle pain, I know pain is temporary, and I don't have to be terrified of it, then you can hold that pain for yourself, accept it as it is, and you know this will eventually disappear. This will eventually reduce. And you know that, especially with emotional pain, and especially if you're going through something like grief, the pain comes in waves. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. And the way that you act and think when you're dealing with this grief is going to determine how hard the pain hits you. If you put resistance and you try to control the pain, then that pain will increase. If you add guilt and shame and other things to that pain will increase. If you look at the pain from an objective place and say, where does this come from? What is the pain, first of all, and where does it show up? Where did it come from? And then how can I reframe it? And with physical pain, it's hard to reframe. All you can do is really accept it and say, okay, I know that this is going to be temporary. But with emotional pain, you can look at what stories am I telling myself that is making this thing worse? Because we do that. What am I telling myself right now about this pain that I'm going through that is making it worse? What am I telling myself? Where do the stories that I'm telling myself come from? Where is this narrative coming from? And when you do that, you can start noticing, okay, I don't need to have these stories with me. I can let go of these stories and I can adopt new stories that are not trying to control or remove the pain, but from a more objective standpoint, I can see that the additional pain I'm subconsciously trying to add is not necessary. And then allowing yourself, I allowed myself to cry a lot over this. Okay, I allowed myself to cry so much. I allowed myself to sit with it. And I would sit and I would feel, where does this pain actually show up in my body? It's very much in the chest and then the throat for me, right? There's a lot of tension here. And then at some point you just breathe into it and you kind of let go of that resistance and it resides a little bit. It's still there and I'm still allowing myself to feel it. But it doesn't have power over me. And I know when I'm in it that this is temporary. I don't need to carry this around for a lifetime. And the more that I'm dealing with it, the more I'm allowing myself to feel it. And the more I'm removing the resistance and the attempt to control it, the more I'm able to just breathe it out of my system. And it will come back. It comes back in waves. And I'm going to deal with it again. And when you know that you can handle pain like that, you stop being scared of it. And when you stop being scared of pain, you make decisions differently. Because all of a sudden, you're looking at a crossroads, and one is the safe road, and one is the uncertain road that you're terrified of, and you don't know what it's going to bring. And it's going to be a whole lot more easy to go down that road because you know there's magic on this road. The comfortable road does not have magic. Okay, it has comfort. And sometimes the comfortable road is fine. But you want to sometimes take that scary road. And when you know that you can deal with your pain, when you know that no pain is bigger than you, you know that whatever is coming, I can handle it, I can deal with that. That gives you such a strong power to continue down the path that can give you the most magical and incredible life. When I moved to Rwanda, I didn't even feel the fear. I had at that point dealt so much with fear that I didn't even feel it. I did a lot of reframing around it too. A lot of people were like, how do you know, like, you're moving without a plan, you're moving without certainty, you're moving without having a job, you don't know what's going on, you're quitting a comfortable job that's paying you really well and you have, your place to live and you have all of these things that are stable and good. Why are you leaving that behind? to go to a country where you barely know anybody. You have no idea if it's going to work out. You have no idea if you can get a job. You have no idea if you can make any money from this. And I just kept thinking to myself, well, the worst thing that can happen is that I spend my savings and then I leave exactly enough for a return ticket. And I know for a fact that I have family members that will let me sleep on their couch until I figure it out. I know for a fact that I have people here who would love to hire me for a job if I come back because they know how incredible I am at what I do. So I gave myself those reframes and the fear disappeared. It's like, okay, I have these savings. It can last me for about 3, maybe 4 months. If I do really well, I'm not overspending. And if I work it out in that period of time, that's great. And if I don't, I'll just get a ticket back and I'll work it out somewhere else. I'll figure it out. It's not that scary. And then I did my thing. I came here. I worked it out. There was a lot of new fears coming as I came here. There was a lot of terrified moments of what was going to happen. But I was able to sit with it and I was able to deal with it. And I was able to remind myself that whatever fear is here right now, the worst case scenario is so extremely rare. And I don't believe that this is a situation where the worst case scenario comes. And I'm going to come out on the other side better than I was before. And when you're able to deal with fear and pain in this way, you allow yourself to expand. Now, these last couple of months I've had with both physical pain and emotional pain has given me so much personal power. Because there's very little that can shake me right now. There's very little that can shake me. And in that sense, doesn't mean that I'm not going to get scared. I'm not going to feel pain. It is that I know that I can deal with the fear and the pain when it comes. And because I know I can deal with the fear and the pain, I don't make my decisions based on avoiding fear and pain. Because for so much of my life, all I've done is in the avoidance of that fear and pain. The people pleasing I've been doing has been in avoiding people getting mad at me. It's about avoiding people getting into a place of confrontation. It's about avoiding saying no because no is uncomfortable, right? Because I'd never practiced it really. I hadn't practiced a lot of no. I'd just been like, okay, we'll work it out. And then I'll end up doing things for people that I didn't actually want to do. And sometimes it wasn't even a no. Sometimes I didn't even have to ask. I would just do things for people so that maybe they'll like me more, so that there's not this risk that they're going to dislike me. And that my need for external validation was so strong because I had no personal power. I had no sense of myself. So I needed external validation so much that I would just constantly do everything in the attempt to get external validation from other people because I didn't know how to validate myself. So many of my decisions, tiny decisions of what I was going to do, what I was going to say, how I was going to act, how I was going to talk to people, how I was going to spend my time, was based on the avoidance of fear and pain and negative situations and hard difficulties, conversations, even in terms of like finding a job, even in terms of choosing what degree to study. It would be around making a decision that was more safe and that someone else had recommended because I didn't trust myself enough to actually even figure out what I was passionate about. And I was so disconnected. All of my avoidance of pain and my drowning of negative emotion that I didn't want to deal with had made me completely emotionally numb, so that none of my decisions were actually based on what do I feel like I want to do. What would bring me joy? What would fill up my cup? What would make me happy and give pleasure and just having amazing experiences? I didn't even know how to feel that. I didn't know how to deal with that, because when you can't have the negative, you also can't have the positive. So when you spend your life drowning the negative emotion, when you spend your life just pushing that back down and just filling up this pressure cooker, you also disconnect from your positive emotion. And one of the things that have come out of me feeling so much physical and emotional pain for the last couple of months has been that now I'm able to feel excitement and joy in a way that I have never been able to before. I don't remember the last time I've been able to just wake up and being extremely excited for the day to come for no particular reason at all. And whenever I've had incredible achievements in my life, whenever I've done something big and I've achieved a goal and I did something great, I couldn't even feel the joy in it. I was not particularly excited when I got my master's degree. I was not particularly excited when I got my bachelor's or finished high school. I wasn't able to feel and hold those emotions. And now on a random Thursday, I wake up with more excitement than I had when I finished school. When it's like when you allow yourself to feel things, you allow yourself to feel all things. When you don't allow yourself to feel things, the best you get to feel is anxiety, because you're pushing down all of this emotion that you haven't dealt with. And you avoid, whenever there's a thought coming that's triggering some of those emotions, you escape that like crazy, right? That's what I would be. Just find distraction, do something that can help me think about something else, because I can't sit with these emotions. When you reach a place where you can sit with emotion, whatever that emotion is, you can do that with yourself. You can do that with others. You can allow others. You can hold a space for other people where they can express difficult emotions. Your life is going to change, because your human experience and the way that you get to feel things changes in such a capacity that you get to just have the full extent of emotion. And it gives you that power. I would just really recommend that if you realize that you've been sitting with pain that you have not faced, if you're not ready to do this on your own, find a professional, right? Talk to a therapist, talk to a coach, talk to somebody who knows how to sit with these emotions. And learn how to face that pain. Learn how to sit with that pain. Learn how to accept the pain and remove the resistance around it. And feel the power. Once that pain is residing, and you're like, okay, I dealt with that. I felt that. I didn't die. I'm now able to go back into life and face people and see people and do things. This pain no longer has such a strong hold on me that I feel numb or that I feel like I can't do anything. It's like you won, right? You won something incredible. And that feeling of power is insane. That personal power that comes from that, it feels like I can handle anything. And then you say you can handle anything. Life is going to come throw something at you. It's going to, are you sure? Right? That happens. And you're going to know deep inside of yourself that, yes, you can handle whatever is coming. And now you can start making decisions based on the beautiful life that you want to have, the beautiful experiences that you want to have. And you can just get all of the things that you've always wanted, instead of just trying to do the things that is the smart thing that other people have told you to do, that is the safe thing to do, that you're supposed to do. And you can start stepping into this life of just expansion and growth. Pain, fear, negative, uncomfortable emotions are such a great way to practice personal growth. So I know that maybe you started watching this video hoping that there's a magic trick to removing pain, like pinch here and it disappears. That's not what this is about. This is about feeling it and overcoming it and turning that pain into your superpower. So I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, if you disagree, please, if you have questions, comments, if there's something that you want to elaborate on, please put it in the comments and I will read them. And if you have something that's really good, I might bring it up in a future video. So sending you all lots of love and hope you have an incredible end of your week. Bye.